Joseline's Cabaret episode 2 review slash recap. If you guys want to purchase this pink microphone, if you do content, I'm going to link it in the caption. Now, I will say now that we're on the second episode, I am starting to develop a few favorites. So I'll let you guys know who are my favorites at the moment. Right now, I like Lexi Gold, Jayla, Isis, Chinks, Showgirl Neek, and Spicy Monty. But of course, these things can change as the weeks go on. Jocelyn gonna always eat this music up. That little intro song she had after Domelo kind of ate. Hold on. I like the way you are. I like the way you are. So we pick up where we left off last week with Danny attacking Wet Wet and tackling her. So after they break that up, Andrea and Wet Wet go 2 more rounds. The first round, I think Wet Wet won. And then the second round, it kind of looked like she was about to get the best of Andrea again. But Andrea kind of sat Wet Wet down on the ledge and started giving it to her. So Jocelyn is like, I'm starting to think Ballistic was right. Maybe Wet Wet isn't the best option of a house mom for a house mom. And Wet Wet is like, you know what? I hear you. Me and her should cheers and take a shot, talking about her and Andrea. So Jocelyn was like, yeah, that's a good idea, and y'all need to hug it out. So they do hug it out. Meanwhile, Raven's still playing with people wigs. First you had on Wet Wet purple wig. Now you got on Andrea orange wig. But during the fight, Andrea's wig had fell on the floor. One of the new girls named Isis had picked it up, and she gave it to Andrea when Andrea was told to go freshen up by Jocelyn. So she snatched the wig from Isis, and Isis was like, don't play with me. I'm not Wet Wet. I'll dog walk you. Because basically she was trying to be nice. She had your wig from off the floor. She did say it stank, but if that's the truth, that's the truth. At least she didn't just leave it sitting on the floor. And this is what I mean when I say Raven is dirty. It's dirty enough that we see you putting on other people's wigs, but now somebody else is saying the wig that you just had on your head stink. And it ain't yours. Andrea didn't want it with Isis. She kept walking. She was talking, but she kept walking. So Jocelyn is asking the ladies how they feel about Wet Wet being a house mom. So Diamond is like, well, I don't need Wet Wet for anything. But of course, the new girls seem more receptive to Wet Wet. They like her, and they're kind of telling Raven and Diamond, y'all need to be worried about us coming to take y'all spots. Raven and Diamond were like, oh, that's not going to happen. We know how to work with Jocelyn way more than y'all. Raven and Diamond, y'all done been kicked out so many times. Y'all don't know how to work with Jocelyn. Raven, you be getting choke slammed. Please. Then out of nowhere, Chinks asked Lexi Gold, do we still got a problem? And Lexi Gold was like, oh, you behind me. That's club shit. Like, that's old to me. I don't work in the club no more. So clearly these ladies know each other. And throughout the episode, we find out that they worked in the club together, but they also dealt with the same man who apparently was pimping both of them. Lexi seems pretty delusional about the guy and saying like that's her man. And Chinks is kind of just accepting what it is, that he's a pimp and he's community dick and he's for everybody. So she's not tripping. So like everybody was saying, these are two thick horses. So when they square up, get out the way. This is the definition of stallions. It do look like Chinks got the best of Lexi, but they was both swinging and fighting. Like when they broke the fight up, it looked like Lexi's lip was bleeding. So Jocelyn tells them to calm down, and now it's time for them to party a little bit before they, go to the hotel and she figure out who she's going to eliminate tomorrow. So before she, releases them from the party to go to the hotel, she's basically telling them, oh, if any of y'all disrespecting me, I'm kicking y'all out. And Neek was kind of talking and raising her hand, asking if she could ask something. And Jocelyn was like, zip it. Now, she did be quiet after Jocelyn told her to, but just keep that in mind that Jocelyn had to tell her to be quiet because it comes up later. So the next day, we see Jocelyn and Ballistic arriving to the house. The house is very nice. And Jocelyn is just basically saying that this season, her and Ballistic will be staying in the house with the ladies sometimes. And it had this little desk, and she was like, I'm going to be having my meetings with these bitches every morning. They need to be lined the fuck up in front of my desk. Meanwhile, we see the girls getting on the bus to head to the house. So Wet Wet going to say, it's hot on this bus. I don't know how y'all fully clothed. Who else fully clothed? And then she looked over at Spicy Monty, which is the BBW. This girl whose head is right above me. And Wet Wet going to ask her, why you not showing off them thunder dyes, them ham hocks? Girl. So Isis basically confronts Andrea and asks her what's up. And she told Danny, you was acting like you wanted to jump in, so what's up? Wet Wet like, ooh, she want to fight you. Wet Wet is being an instigator, not a house mom. Isis and Andrea squared up twice. In my opinion, Isis took the win. Andrea did try to choke her out a little bit at the end, but that's all I saw her doing. So Andrea was like, oh, if you knew better, you would stop starting problems with me because you need us. You're going to learn from us. You're going to need us throughout the show. Like, girl, nobody needs you. And Lexi was like, I be clicking out when Andrea be talking shit. She be doing all that hollering and she ain't doing nothing. So shut the fuck up. Exactly. So now Danny wants to square up with Isis. And Isis is like, we could square up, but we going to fight when we get off this bus. I'm not doing no more fighting in these little spaces. And Danny was like, no, we could fight right now. So Danny was like, well, if you don't square up, I'm going to attack you. So Isis got up and Isis beat Danny's ass. Punched her all in her shit. And then Andrea tried to jump in and help. And I saw Envy, Erica, and Jayla jumping in because they was like, why are you jumping? Now I peeped that when Jayla had jumped in on Andrea and Danny trying to jump Isis, that Ocean was jumping in to try to hit Jayla. So I'm like, why are you jumping in like on the side of the OGs and you don't know anybody here? And then I realized that Oceans was looking for a moment. And she says, oh, I had a problem with you, Neek and Jayla, because last night when Jocelyn was talking, y'all kept talking. Remember I told y'all how the girl Neek was talking and Jocelyn had to tell her to be quiet. So Neek was like, I really don't want to fight Oceans over this because it's stupid, but she calling me out. So what's up? Neek fucked her up. I guess they call her Oceans because her ass be swimming. So Oceans was clearly just trying to have a moment and get on Jocelyn's good side, talking about nobody disrespects the Puerto Rican princess. Neek and Oceans win a second round. Neek was swinging, but Oceans did get her on the floor, and then it looked like she started swinging at Neek, but she wasn't connecting nothing, and she had a hoodie on, and Neek pulled the hoodie over her eyes, so she couldn't see nothing, and she wasn't doing nothing. So Wet Wet was just like, Jayla, I respect you because I saw you jumped in because you didn't like seeing somebody else getting jumped, and that's the motto of season 5, no jumping. So Wet Wet was like, well, do you have beef with anybody off the bus? And Jayla asked Oceans, like, do you have beef with me and Neek? And she was like, I don't know. Y'all both was talking. And Jayla was like, so what's up? And she got up. So her and Oceans have a round. Oceans definitely got that one, but I still like Jayla over Oceans. So Wet Wet got to bringing up Chinks and Lexi's issue. And Raven was like, no, they're too big to be fighting on this bus. Can we wait to handle that at the house? So they agreed, but then Chinks was like telling Fetish, the girl who said that she knew both of them, you're mad fake because you was just talking about Lexi in the club, but now you're in her face. And Lexi was like, oh, Chinks, please, I know the real you. So they finally arrived to the house and are about to pick their rooms. So Wet Wet came in doing the most, bending over with no underwear on, and Jocelyn was like, you know what, Wet Wet, get out. So Jocelyn asked Spicy Monica, what's going on with you? Are you going through menopause? Basically saying that on her audition tape, Monica had a lot more personality, but she seems to be very quiet and meek here, and she's very covered up. So Jocelyn's like, you know, you have to be sexy, you have to be loud, you have to be sensual to be in a cabaret. Wet Wet is outside giving me very much R-rated New York Tiffany Pollard vibes, talking about send me home, I don't give a fuck. So Oceans and Neek ended up explaining the little squabble they had on the bus, and of course Jocelyn was so impressed by that, and she loves Oceans because she loves a lap dog. So Jocelyn tells them to go find their rooms and tells them that they're going to a pool party later and that she will be eliminating some people later. I guess based on how they act at the pool party, who's doing the most. Obviously, she wants them to be sexy and nasty, so whoever's doing the most will stay. She also said that there aren't enough beds or rooms for all of the girls, so they need to just get in where they fit in. They might have to sleep on the couch, they might have to sleep on the floor. And she told them, I don't want any fights at the pool party, so if y'all have anything y'all need to get out, there's a backyard, y'all can go square up, do as y'all please. Wet Wet's still outside talking to herself while all the girls are getting their rooms. So Neek had a room with a balcony and she was on the balcony and she was trying to get Wet Wet attention like special delivery, Chung Lee Wet. Wet Wet didn't even hear her because she was so busy bugging the fuck out. Then Wet Wet decides to get down in the grass and like I said, she had on no underwear, bending over, putting her legs up, opening her legs, and they're in a nice neighborhood. So someone called the cops. Wet Wet was all in Jocelyn's face talking about you promised to get my teeth fixed. What happened to that? You lied. Jocelyn was like, back up off me. And then she called Andrea, and Andrea came down ready to fight for her being a lap dog. But I guess this is also because Jocelyn is on probation. So Andrea and Danny get Wet Wet back outside on the grass. Wet Wet is having an entire meltdown saying she's the star of the show. When people think about Jocelyn's cabaret, they think about Wet Wet. She helped Jocelyn build the fucking cabaret, and this is the credit she gets. The police get there, everybody runs upstairs. Wet Wet is outside talking to the police, crying, looking a mess. Meanwhile, Jocelyn tells the ladies to come downstairs, and if anybody has anything to get out before they go to the pool party, get it out now. Chinks and Lexi start going at it. So much clothes and hair was flying off, child. We'll get a good look at that next episode on episode 3. See y'all there. Bye.